What's up, guys? This is Mr. Eldridge, and in today's lesson, we are going to look at the lead-up to World War II. Rising to power in the shambles of the Great Depression, and in the case especially in Germany, the Treaty of Versailles had limitations. This is going to allow for the rise of fascist dictators. Those motivated by extreme, expansionist, ethno-nationalism, and anti-communism. These people are going to rise to power in Italy and Germany with Benito Mussolini and then, of course, Adolf Hitler. Despite requirements in the Treaty of Versailles, Hitler is going to go against Britain and France in 1936 by remilitarizing the Rhineland. This was a neutral zone by France. Italy also joined in by violating the League of Nations and invading the African country of Ethiopia in 1935. When Britain and France responded by doing little more than imposing light economic sanctions, this gave the go-ahead for Germany and Italy to proceed. Hitler's next move was to expand Germany by annexing Austria in 1938. After no opposition to this blatant violation of the Treaty of Versailles, Hitler began demanding all German-speaking regions, including Czechoslovakia's Sudetenland. British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain led the way with Britain and France in a new political tactic called appeasement. This was giving the enemy what it wants to satisfy it. The leaders of Britain, France, Germany, and Italy met in Munich in 1938 and agreed to let Hitler absorb the Sudetenland if he agreed to stop expanding. Known as the Munich Agreement, the British and French leaders returned to their countries in praise, having secured peace and averted war. However, rather than stopping there, Hitler took the Sudetenland and proceeded to invade and annex all of Czechoslovakia. Despite this violation, Britain and France did nothing, prompting Hitler to demand the former territories it had lost in Poland. Confident that Britain and France were too afraid to stop him, Hitler formed an alliance with Japan and Italy, known as the Axis powers, and decided to invade Poland. Wanting to unify all Germans and take their living spaces for the German people to the east, he first agreed to split Poland with the Soviet Union. Stalin, surprised Hitler was willing to work with the communists, happily agreed to the Nazi-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact, which organized a joint invasion and split of Poland. In September of 1939, Hitler invaded and quickly conquered Poland with the USSR, but was surprised when Britain and France declared war on Germany. While fighting did not occur for another 7 months, Britain and France would quickly be overwhelmed by the German Blitzkrieg, and within a year, Germany conquered France. Germany was able to easily overwhelm British and French forces, since it had superior weapons, strategy, and had practiced them in the Spanish Civil War. Within a year, Hitler had defeated all opponents in Western Europe, leaving only Britain. With the West secured, Hitler continued the racial struggle for German living spaces from the Slavs by surprisingly invading the Soviet Union in 1941. Also, unprepared to fight the Blitzkrieg, the Soviets lost nearly all of the Western USSR, with the Germans only being stopped by the winter at Leningrad, Stalingrad, and Moscow. While the Soviets, with heavy losses, would eventually push the Germans back, slowly starting at Stalingrad in 1943. Hitler had conquered nearly all of Europe by 1942. At the start of World War II, the peoples of the United States desired to remain neutral, as they were largely concerned with the political issues and struggles of Europeans. Additionally, most were focused on handling their own domestic issues, such as the Great Depression. Regardless, Germany was the clear aggressor of the war, and the United States under FDR would make efforts to aid the Allied powers, most notably the United Kingdom. Other than regular sales of supplies and loans, the United States also employed the cash carry program in 1939, in which military equipment and ships could be purchased in cash. That way there's no paper trail. The United States also instituted the Lend-Lease Act in 1940, which the United States offered and loaned out essentially free equipment for use by Allied forces in exchange for the free leasing of Allied military bases and territories, as well as local supplies. While this certainly ended the pretext of neutrality, the United States would not officially join the conflict until the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. Japan had also suffered substantially from the Great Depression, seeking to pursue their goal of ridding Asia of Western powers to be made the imperial ruler of Asia and grow their economy and military. They turned to China. With little in the way of economic growth, the Japanese resorted to militarism to boost morale and plunder the Chinese. After staging a Chinese nationalist attack on the Japanese railroad in Manchuria, the Japanese promptly invaded in 1937, starting what's known as the Second Sino-Japanese War. While the Japanese were harshly criticized for their invasion, the world was likewise appalled by the Japanese occupation of China. With multiple instances of brutality, persecution, murder, rape of the native Chinese in cities such as Nanjing, oftentimes this is known as the Rape of Nanjing, global opinion turned hastily against the Japanese. As such, wanting to avoid war, but at the same time wanting to discourage Japanese aggression, the United States and British stalled shipments of oil to Japan, who had little to no natural oil reserves. This is known as the famous oil embargo. Estimating to have a supply of about 6 months, the Japanese determined the only pursuable course was to attack Western holdings of oil and to also cripple their own true opponent and rival in the Pacific, the United States Navy. Once the British, French, and Dutch, all with possessions in the West Pacific, were occupied by or engaged with the Nazis during World War II, they made their move. And that move is going to come on December 7th, 1941. In December of 1941, with France conquered and Britain at war with Germany, Japan took the chance to seize all Western outposts in East Asia. Japan quickly used its new industrialized Navy and Air Force to take Hong Kong and Singapore from the British. It also invaded the conquered French Indochina and Dutch Indonesia. In an attempt to ensure the United States could not stop its conquest of the Pacific, it also attacked the United States Navy at Pearl Harbor. While the United States victory at Midway in 1942 would sink the Japanese aircraft and turn the tide of the war, Japan seemed unstoppable for the first year of the war.